Okay, so I thought I would send you some information about graphing inequalities. The textbooks use a lot of notation, but I don't see where the notations were explained, so I'm going to explain. And this first is something you would know. You would know already that inequality is true if either the more than or less than sign or the equal sign part is true. So 3 is less than or equal to 10 is true. It's not equal to 10, it's less than 10. So it's true. And 10 is equal to 10, but you can also write 10 is less than or equal to 10. And in set notation, you will, let me just put my glasses on. There are quite a few different ways to write solutions to inequalities. So for example, to say something as simple as x is less than 5, you know, you can say x is less than 5, or you can write x less than 5. There are 4 general forms that you will see at this level, grade 11, grade 12. You will see the inequality form, graph form, set form, and interval form. So with the graph form, you will see it's just a straight line, like a number line. And because x is less than 5, you will see a circle, an open circle on the 5, and an arrow leading to minus infinity. And that basically says x is less than 5. Now, if you had x was less than or equal to 5, this circle would be painted in, but it's not. So you know that x is less than 5. If you want to write it in set form, you would use this specific type of bracket, this curly bracket. Then you'd say x for the set of x is less than 5, curly bracket. That is with set form. And if you wanted to use interval form, you would use a different type of bracket. Notice there's 2 different types of brackets. When you're using interval form to express x is less than 5, I'm sorry, I have 3 there, but this should be a 5. So let me change that. All right. So for in interval form, you would see this bracket. It's a sort of a semicircle, and minus infinity, comma, 5, and then another bracket. Now, when you use this type of bracket, it means that 5 is not included, and minus infinity is not included because you can't really get to minus infinity. So you know that the values are in between the numbers 5. So less than 5, they could be 4.999999999, but it will never be 5. And up to just before minus infinity, but infinity is not a real number. That is why you use this bracket. Now, if you wanted to say less than or equal to 5, you would use a different type of bracket. You would use these brackets. This bracket says includes. This bracket says does not include. So this bracket is like you saying less than or equal to, more than or equal to, and this bracket is equivalent to just these signs. This bracket is equal to these signs. Sorry, this sign, right? And so for, say you wanted to give the domain and range for the function y is equal to x squared, the domain would be a set of x. This stands for, this little funny e is, you could say, is a set of. X is a set of real numbers. And then the range, because we know when you have y equals x squared, here's a family of y equals x squared here. You see, here is y equal x squared. And then this one is y equals 0.5 x squared. And this one in here is y equals 2x squared. That's the narrowest one. It's compressed because it has a coefficient of 2 in front of the x, and this one has a coefficient of 0.5 or a half. So when you have a smaller coefficient, you're going to get a wider graph than the parent graph. And when you have a real number that is greater than 1, that's going to narrow because the y values are increasing at a more rapid rate than the parent function. So that's going to make the graph thin. Okay, so when you're writing the answer, when they say find the domain and the range for y equals x squared, you could use any of these. But if you were choosing set notation, you would write the domain is x is a set of real numbers, because the domain can go, the domain could be negative anything to positive anything. This is a set of real numbers. But the range, because x squared can only be positive, so the range can only be positive. So y is a set of real numbers such that this straight line translates to such that y is more than or equal to 0. Y cannot be less than 0. And when you have like a discontinuous function, that's where you have like an asymptote. You would recognize those, this discontinuous function, where there's a break in x. So like x is less than or equal to minus 1, then there'll be an asymptote, and then x is more than 3. You could write it like this. So for the part that says x is less than or equal to minus 1, you would have a colored in circle and the arrow going to infinity, to minus infinity. That needs to be circled. That needs to be... So for the part x is less than or equal to minus 1, you have the colored in circle and the straight line going to minus infinity. And then there'll be a break here. So there's nothing between 1 and 3. And then you have x is equal to, x is more than 3. So because you only have more than and not more than or equal to, you will have an open circle and then highlight to positive infinity. And when you're writing in set notation, you will say, you'd use the bracket, x is a set such that x is less than or equal to 1, or x is more than 3, and a curly bracket. And if you wanted to use interval notation, you would use a semicircle, sort of like a curled bracket. I should have minus here. This is minus infinity to minus 1. So minus infinity to minus 1. And this U stands for union. This U stands for union. Then you would have a semicircle, 3, comma, plus infinity. Sometimes you'll just see infinity. They may not always put the positive sign because, when it's nothing there, it's positive. When it's negative, you have to put that negative sign. So you would have x, the domain, is the union of the two sets. Set 1 goes from minus infinity to minus 1, and it includes minus 1. This says it includes, this square bracket here includes minus 1, and x is more than 3 but less than positive infinity. So just to recap, this straight line says such that, is shorthand for such that. When you have like a little bridge, like an upside down cup, that says the intersection of two sets. So you would use this, for example, if you had you had two lines, x is equal to something, or y is equal to x something, and then another, minus x is equal to something, and they wanted the intersection of the two sets. There's one point, x and y intersects both lines. You would use this intersection and write the point. When they ask you, solve these two linear equations. And this, as we just said, was a union of two sets. So you might want to look up these. These R stands for real numbers. So if you see R means real numbers. If you see W means whole numbers. Whole numbers. If you see Z stands for integers. Z stands for integers. If you see Q stands for rational numbers. If you see I stands for irrational numbers. And of course, E is a set of. And I think that, and ellipses, when you see 3 dots, it means it's the equivalent, 3 dots is the equivalent of this, goes on forever. So that should help you review your different notation forms and make it easy for you to, when you're putting your answers. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to call, text, or email me. Have a great afternoon in math.